So now I'd like to go ahead and get to some questions. So hopefully you guys have some questions for me, okay? Does anyone have something? What's up? Good question. So when it comes to most of my businesses, like Attila, Stasek Clothing, stuff like that, I don't have a partner, but I do have a partner with my record label, Stasek Recordings, and my partner is Attila's manager, Mike Milford. He's a really smart individual. I trust him with my entire life. He's my best friend. I've known him forever, and he possesses all three of those qualities that I told you. He's really intelligent. He's got extremely high energy, and he's got the highest integrity out of any individual I've ever met. So when I had an opportunity to start a record label with him as my partner, it made perfect sense, and I didn't hesitate.
I know you have an app called Spur. I want to know how long, what was the process of developing, how many years did it take?
Good question. So he asked about my mobile app Spur. Spur took a long time. It took about a year to create. So Spur started as an idea because I felt like the world needed a social app that didn't have so much hate and negativity behind it. So I wanted to create my own photo app that was as simple as possible, where you could either choose to like a photo or dismiss it and just post the things you love. So I created Spur. It took about a year, and it was a long process. I've got a large social following, which I used to my advantage to help find a team that was smart enough to build an app like Spur. But even with as many followers as I have, it still took a long time to find the right people to create an app like that, because it's hard. Like app coding and stuff like that is something that's really difficult, and there's very few people out there that possess the skill to create a social network. So it took me a long time to find the team, but once I finally did find the team, it was just a matter of time to get the ball rolling. And Spur for me is a really big, it's a really big ambition of mine, because I'm like very small along the path of where I want to be with Spur. So I've got a huge update coming out and a lot of big advancements with it that I'm planning for the future, but it's probably one of the hardest things I've ever pushed forward with, and it took me a very long time to get the ball rolling with it, from finding a team to creating the app to everything. It's one of the most difficult things I've ever done.
How do you go about starting a project? Like, how do you make that first step starting?
What do you mean, like just taking the very first initial steps into something? What are you interested in, man?
You have, like, say you have your idea, like, whatever it may be. Like, how do you make that on paper and physical?
So he asked, like, if you have an idea, how do you make it happen? Well, it's the hardest part, but it's also the reason why most people have ideas and they don't do anything with them. They just don't take the next step. Take a look at your idea and find something similar that you can kind of relate to that idea, and see what that particular person did to start up that idea. Like, let's say it's, I don't know, a record label or an app or something, or starting a band even, and take a look at someone else that may have done something similar and see what they did to take that initial step. But it's hard to really give you an exact answer when I don't know exactly what idea you're trying to pursue.
Say it's like
A music festival?
like what Kevin Lyman did.
Great, yeah. I would say to try and go ahead and make connections within that industry. As hard as it may seem, a lot of people that work in the music industry are very nice and willing to talk about how they got started. And if you are interested in starting a music festival, I know that Kevin Lyman and other festival producers actually hold classes just like this, where they teach the specifics of getting into that industry. So that might be something you want to look into, because the thing about a lot of successful entrepreneurs out there is the most successful entrepreneurs are very, very nice and willing to spread their knowledge out to everybody. So if you just look for it, chances are a lot of these people that are doing things that you want to do, they have classes out there and they're willing to teach you the specific steps for that particular industry. So I would just dive in, do some research, and get involved. Good question. He asked me what made me want to start Stasek Clothing. So I wanted to start my clothing line because I had this wealth of ideas. I had a big memory bank filled with ideas for clothing and t-shirts and stuff like that. And I was in that position that a lot of you guys are at where it's kind of like, hey, I've got all these ideas, but I'm not doing anything with them. So rather than being the person with ideas that doesn't do anything, I said, look, I've got to go for it. The worst that can happen is I'm going to fail. So what? So I took all these ideas that I had and I made them happen. I made some connections. I teamed up with a company that did my printing and my distribution and the website back end and everything. And the thing about Stasek is I actually started Stasek with no money. When I started Stasek, I was flat broke. I was kind of in a rough situation. But the one thing that I did have is I had people that believed in me. And I'll tell you right now that building connections and having other humans out there that believe in you and back you as a human is a really big thing that's going to help you along the way. So I didn't have money to start Stasek, which a lot of people think you need to have money to start businesses. I didn't have anything, but I had people that believed in me as a human and that were willing to give me a chance. So they printed out a couple designs of my merchandise for me, and they gave me a shot. And I went out there, I promoted it, and I told everyone I knew about it. And like I said, it was rough. The first 2 years for my clothing line, I didn't really have any sales. It was not a very good position. But the one thing I will tell you is whether or not I had no sales or a couple sales or whatever, I stayed persistent and I stayed passionate about it. And I went full force with it, and I never hit the brakes at all. I just went for it and I never stopped. And sure enough, after a couple years of just spreading the word and pushing it, it started catching on and people started loving the concept and rallying behind my brand. Questions? Back there. Hey, what up? What advice do I have for starting a band and making it successful? Okay, I'll give you my rundown for starting a band in a nutshell. Step one, you have to find the most dedicated members possible. So if you're starting a band, don't just go out there and rally up your friends to start a band. I know it might seem cool to have your homies in a band because that seems cool, but I'm here to tell you that your homies might not be the best at their respective instruments. So go out there looking for people that are really talented at their particular instrument and that are willing to do whatever it takes to succeed. It's almost more about your mental capacity than it is about friendship and the other aspects. Find people that are dedicated and willing to do anything to succeed. Find people that also have the same vision as you. So whenever you're starting a band, you don't want to start a band with members that kind of want to go in different directions musically. Find members that all have the same vision, the same idea for your sound, and try to find people that are passionate about what they do and people that are going to be willing to dedicate their time to the band and not, a lot of people start bands and, oh yeah, he's a great guitarist, but he's got a girlfriend and he doesn't want to tour, or he doesn't want to write music or whatever. Find people that want to play music and nothing but that, because in the beginning stages of a band, it's only about the music and that's it. Block everything else out. You've got to focus on the music and do whatever it takes to push it to the next level. And with a band, I always tell people, don't try to jump mountains. Just try to climb small hills. Take everything one small step at a time with your band. Start at the very bottom. That's what Attila did. We started off playing a driveway on Halloween night for 5 people, and it was the time of my life. It was the best show ever. We started off in the driveway, we moved to a basement, then to a house show, and then after playing a bunch of random things, we moved to an actual venue. But we took it one small step at a time. We didn't try to go from starting a band to touring the world. So I always just tell people, start small, find people that are dedicated, that you mesh well with, that you can create music with, because it's about creativity. It's about music. If you're pumping out music and you guys are having a good time, that's step one. From there, build it from the bottom. Start playing small venues or small house shows, whatever it may be. Start in your local area, build in your local area, and then start branching out. but start at step one. Don't skip steps. And that's how you succeed.
How do you like manage your time so well? 'Cause I know you do like a whole bunch of stuff here, and then you also have your family, and then like all your social media.
Awesome. So she asked a good question. She asked how I manage my time so well. And I'll go ahead and say that time management is an important and difficult thing, but I firmly believe that if you're passionate enough about something, you will find time for it, whether it's a human relationship or whether it's a business or whatever. If you love something enough, you find time for it. So for me, having a family, having, you know, a record label, a mobile app, a clothing line, a band, and several other ventures that I'm involved with that I don't make public, I have time for all of these different things because I'm so passionate about them. I'm willing to wake up 6 a.m. or earlier, or whatever it takes to start doing these things because I love it so much. I'm willing to do whatever it takes because it doesn't feel like work to me. It feels like fun. I wake up with a smile on my face. I think the worst thing that could ever happen in life is if you end up with one of those jobs where you wake up at 5 to start the commute in rush hour and you just hate everything, because then what's the point? I wake up early at 5 or 6 or whatever it may be, and I wake up super happy because I'm stoked to start doing something I love. So I think it's just about doing things you love. Like, I do a lot of different things, but I love everything I do, so I really don't care if my whole day is consumed. At least I'm consuming it with things that make me happy.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Question?
How long did it take from when the band started to when you released Fallacy?
Can you say it a little louder, please?
Yeah, how long was it from when you started Attila to when Fallacy was released?
The start of Attila to Fallacy was probably only about a year, man, because we started Attila at 14 and when I was 14, excuse me, and we started writing Fallacy at about 15. So we jumped right into it with a full length, and I personally funded the whole thing. I bagged groceries and saved up as much money as I could to put out that album, and I self-funded everything, and it was rough, man. That's another thing. That's a really big thing that I want to stress on you guys. A lot of people are hesitant to start a business or start a band or start whatever because they think, oh man, I don't have any money, or money this or money that. Money doesn't stop you from doing anything because there's so many different ways to get around it. For example, money management. It doesn't matter whether you're making $100 a week or $10,000 a week. What matters is how you manage that money. Make sure you take care of yourself. Obviously, you need to pay your rent. You need to feed yourself. You know, whatever the most important things are, your cell bill, whatever. Take care of the basics and the most important things to you. But then after that, that's when money management kicks in. Take in every single thing that you have after the basics and budget that. Put away as much of that as you can into a savings, or put it away to where you forget that money exists. And after time, you're going to have money built up, so that way you can self-fund that album, buy musical equipment, start that business. Another big thing I need to stress is to start building your credit as soon as possible. I was one of the people that I hated credit, and I thought, I never want a credit card. I think it's stupid. I hate this. It's a big scheme. Which I still think all of those things, but I'm here to tell you to start building your credit as soon as possible, because if I could have one piece of advice for 18-year-old me or 17-year-old me, I would have said, hey, go out and start that credit card right now, because when it comes time to buy a house, to buy a car, whatever it is, you need credit. You could have a ton of money in the bank, you could have reliable people saying that you're trustworthy. That doesn't matter. It's all about credit, and it sucks, but build your credit. And make sure you never carry a balance, and only utilize about 30% of your monthly limit. But start a credit card as soon as possible. Sorry for that rant. That didn't have anything to do with your question. I just remember there was a couple things I needed to get off my shoulders really quick. Do you guys have any questions over here? What's up? What advice would I have for somebody starting a clothing company? Okay. So, when it comes to clothing companies, it's a market that tends to be pretty oversaturated. There's a lot of clothing companies out there, and that doesn't mean that you shouldn't go for it. What it means is that you should think of an idea or a name or something that sets you apart from everything else. That's step one. if you're coming up with a new innovative idea or something that you're really passionate about, then you should go for it. One thing I always tell people is if you're starting a clothing line, it's really helpful if you don't have a huge following to push it. It's helpful to have like a celebrity backer, for example. A big thing to realize when it comes to business, it's better to own 50% of a huge business than 100% of nothing. So if it means taking your idea, taking your company, splitting it in half and teaming up with someone that has a huge social outreach, by all means, you should do that. That's something I always stress to people, because even if you're only making 50% at that point, you're making 50% of $1 million company because you teamed up with someone who's got a huge reach. So that's one idea. That's one big helpful tip I give people. But as long as you have the creativity and the designs and the knowledge and stuff like that and the marketing skills, I think everything just falls in place. And, you know, like I said, time is the biggest factor. So give it time. Don't expect to make any money in the first couple years or few years. Just stick with it and do it as long as you can. I'm trying to understand like the exacts of your question. You're saying if you come up with an idea and someone says it's already been done?
Like how hard is it to come up with something that nobody else has had without saying like, oh, let me sue you because I already came up with it. You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. You know, it's easy to think that a lot of ideas have already been done before because honestly, a lot of ideas have been done before. But I'm here to tell you another big thing. It doesn't even necessarily matter if an idea's been done before. What matters most is that you're doing it better. For example, I'm involved in a new company that's up and coming that's going to take over the whole entire world. And the reason it's going to take over, it's not anything brand new. It's a roadside service company, but it's going to be way better and way more innovative and way more convenient than anything out on the market right now. So it's kind of like, yeah, roadside service, that's been done before. There's AAA, there's tow trucks, there's all these things, but this company is way better and way more innovative and way more convenient for the users and the customers. So it's kind of like, you know, think about the guy that Mark Zuckerberg who created Facebook. I'm sure when he created Facebook, people were saying, well, hey, we've got MySpace. Why are you doing this? And he said, well, hey, because this is better and bigger and it's going to take over and knock out MySpace. And he probably had that attitude, and that's why he succeeded. So it's kind of like you might be going for an idea that's already been done, but if you're doing it better and you have a competitive advantage over whoever else it may be, you're going to be the one to succeed. A lot of ideas have been thought of, but you might think of a way that makes it better, and you should still go for it, even if it's already thought of. If you can make it better, that's all it takes. Questions over here, anybody? What's up? That's kind of a funny question. She asked if I trust my son's opinion. Well, he's 3 right now, so I don't think he really is a good business partner. But I love him to death, and yeah, he's yeah. I love him to death, but you know, I tell you what, the coolest thing about kids though, which I guess is something a lot of you guys probably don't have kids, you're younger, but when you have a kid, it's one of the greatest rewards in life. And the craziest thing is you actually learn more from children than you learn from anyone else, because children teach you how to appreciate life. And until I had a kid, I didn't really know how valuable life was until you see a kid like playing with a bug and just crying of like happiness, you know. It's like, wow, like, you know, it kind of makes you step back and realize like how awesome the world is, especially when you get caught up in things. So I'm not telling you guys to go out and have kids. You're young, but when you do have kids, just be prepared that it's the best thing in life and you'll be really happy. Questions? What'd you ask? How do you find sponsors for businesses? Okay, good question. So not every business needs a sponsor. I don't think anything I do really has a sponsor, but sponsors are a great thing. And here's what you do. You email them, you hit them up, you contact them. If you need to go have a business meeting with them, you do it. But the most important thing you can utilize right now in this age is email. So learn how to write a beautifully crafted email and hit up all these sponsors that you're looking to bring on board and give them your business plan and tell them why it would benefit them to be a sponsor. I hit up people a lot actually for endorsements for products that I like and this and that. And what I always do is I try not to drag it on too long because nobody likes a 10-page novel email, but learn how to write a well-crafted email. It's one of the most important skills you could have is writing a good email. Be straight to the point. Introduce yourself. My name is Chris Fronzak, and I'm a huge fan of your product. I'm seeking an endorsement, and this is why I think that you should endorse me or sponsor me. I've got 250,000 Instagram followers, 290 Facebook, this and that, and I like to promote on social media, and I really back your company, and I like to push it to my fan base. My demographic ranges from 14 to 25, and they're very interested in your product. You just got to sell yourself and kind of put yourself out there and say, hey, this is why you should endorse or sponsor my business or my product, and this is why it would help you, and let me know your thoughts and let's talk more. Here's my number. If I've got to fly out and do a meeting, do it. You just have to be persistent and on top of it, but learn how to craft up a well-written email because that's going to benefit you a lot. A well-written email can get you almost anything. I'm a firm believer of that. I've got time for one more question. Does anyone have a good, juicy one for me? You. How do I warm up my voice before stage? I use Melissa Cross's warm-ups. She's really talented, and she's got a series of warm-ups that are really beneficial for people that do all different ranges of vocals. So look up Melissa Cross, Zen of Screaming warm-ups. Those will help you. One more question.
How do you do
Awesome. So he's got a good question. He asked how I deal with people that put me down in negativity and hatred, and that's a good question because I get a lot of that. I get so much hatred and negativity every single day, but what I do is I use it to my advantage. I use it to build me up and make me stronger. Every time someone says something negative about me or tries to put me down, I just use that as fuel to become the best and to take over. So, the thing about being an entrepreneur is there's going to be a lot of people out there that doubt you, that tell you that what you're doing is wrong and what you're doing is not going to succeed. But that goes to say that people are going to say that about anything that's awesome. All the biggest businesses out there have haters. All the biggest entrepreneurs out there have haters. All the most successful people have haters. And the one thing that sets them apart from everyone else is because they took the hate and they laughed at it. They shrugged it off and said, who cares? I'm up here. You're down there. I'm killing it. You're a hater. Who cares? So if people are hating on you or putting you down, use that to your advantage to prove them wrong. The one thing I love is when people hate on me, it makes me want to be that much more successful. So I can just look down at them and spit on their face and say, look, you're down there hating and look at me. You should do something better for yourself and become a more positive person. So that's it. Thank you guys for your questions. Thank you guys for joining my lesson today. I love you guys. Have a great day.